Whoa, that's a difficult one. That's like saying pick 3 types of food and that will give you an introduction to the wide world of food. We like to think we're a pretty broad church. The styles of music that we like and we enjoy making are pretty vast vista of stuff. Because we're the sort of people that like all types of music. The idea of musical ghettos appalls us. You know, the fact that, this radio station only plays urban garage psychobilly, or this radio station only plays 80s soft rock and ambient funk. I hate that whole pigeonholing of music. Colin does as well, and Dave Gregory did, and I think Terry Chambers did when he was in the band. We just love all sorts of music. Well, something like Making Plans for Nigel, which is a track from '79, which did us a lot of favours, certainly in England. It really opened the doors for us in England. And it's you'll hear it's got a kind of a very upside down voodoo throb to it and mechanical sounding guitars, yet the song over the top is a rather sweet little tune about parents rather overprotectively guiding their son into a career that he might not want. So that would be a good place to start. How about something that was, because XTC do have a big psychedelic edge. We love psychedelic music. I think it was the music that we thought as school children, when we grew up, we'd be in a band that made psychedelic music. And of course, by the time you grow up and you're making music professionally, musical tastes have moved on, and people might think, oh no, that's silly, and it's too daft. We don't do psychedelic anymore. Well, we do. We love it. We love things being a little askew and a little mismatched, and the way they melt together, or you get a different picture by the way something might be weirdly juxtaposed with another thing. So let's have something from the kind of mid-period where we're starting to get we're enjoying our psychedelia. The aforementioned song, Seagulls Screaming, Kisser, Kisser, an attempt to take the English seaside in winter in all its broken down, sad glory, and use it for a backdrop where an idiot, probably me, in the song is kicking himself for not taking the opportunity with a rather lovely young lady. And now here's a song I'm immensely proud of. You'll find this on the Apple box. It's a song called Easter Theatre. It's nothing at all to do with my infatuation with stage design or toy theatres or anything like that, although I must admit that maybe gave it its title to start with. One of the things that I eternally keep coming back to is the cycle of life and death, and the way it goes round and round. And although I try not to repeat myself in songs, I find I'm drawn back to this subject many times. And this song really grew from finding some very dark chords that, as I played them and moved around the guitar with these very dark, earthy chords, what does this sound like? It sounds like something trying to push up through the ground. So, these chords are clay or earth, and they're very dark, browny grey. And yet the fact that I'm ascending up the guitar and moving the shapes slightly, it sounds like something trying to push up through the ground. And that's where the whole idea of life at Easter time bursting forward. And if you've done your research, folks, you'll know that Easter is actually a Germanic goddess of new life. Her symbols are the egg and the procreating hare, which is why we get the Easter bunny. Procreating hares are really not, you don't want to shove that in the kids' faces, I think, but fluffy Easter bunny is acceptable. And I'm really immensely proud of this song, and I'm going to shut up about it now, and you can hear it, and you can judge for yourselves. I've got to be very careful how I answer this question, because I'm sure the local newspaper has got a personal vendetta on me. They're always combing other magazines looking for any references I make to Swindon, and then giving me a full-page special. Andy knocks Swindon yet again. Andy takes a pop at Swindon. And really, I'm not intentionally trying to degrade the place. I've lived here most of my life, so I know what it's like, and it's as simple as that. It's a bit of a rundown sort of place that stinks terribly of council corruption, I'm afraid, but it's my home, and damn it, I love it. I shouldn't love it, because it's as dull as dishwater, and the people are very kind of closed up around here, and there's not a great deal of warmth in the town, and the new part of the town is an architectural hell, I have to say. It's like they seem to try all the worst ideas in architecture in Swindon and then think, yeah, that you're right, that was awful. Oh, well, let's just leave it then, shall we? And so we seem to have an awful architecture museum that's called the centre of the new town of Swindon. But I live in the old part of the town, which used to be a kind of cattle market, livestock market in the Victorian era and previously. And yeah, it's okay. Everyone's got to come from somewhere, and I'm actually glad that Swindon has given me a very balanced, a sort of a gift of a balanced look at being average and English, because there's nowhere more average and nowhere more English than Swindon. I hope there'll be another album. At the moment, I don't know. I mean, I'm writing less material than I've this years, because I seem to be doing so much more other things. But I don't want to make another album without Colin's involvement, and I'm not sure where Colin stands at the moment. Well, it's the male marriage thing, really. We collided into each other in about 1972. And I'd seen him around the town he had very long sort of brassy hair at the time, and I'd think, wow, that's one hell of a head of hair. I didn't know he was a Leo. He really had the mane, and he's still pretty hirsute now, I don't think I've ever grown enough hair in my life to the amount that he's got all over him and his body. He's kind of a bass-playing yeti on the quiet, I think. But yeah, I bumped into him in '72, and he played bass and I played guitar, and he knew a drummer. It was Terry Chambers. And it was a case of, well, okay, and we just kind of congealed as like minds into a band, and that was the Helium Kids. In '75, the name changed from the Helium Kids to XTC, and Colin and I were still struggling to get a record deal and get our doings down on tape. And around about '76, Colin started writing songs as well. I think he thought to himself, well, if Andy can do it, it must be easy. And we've really been writing songs, not together, but in healthy competition since then. And it really is like a male marriage, he's kind of like a brother. It's the love-hate thing. I'm sure he'd feel exactly the same. There's times when I think he's amazing and, want to wear him. And then there's times where I could hollow him out and stuff him full of marshmallow and roast him. But that's kind of like the brother thing, I guess. The real reason behind the Fuzzy Warbles was just my ever-increasing anger that I'd be seeing online, and I'd be hearing from people that they'd bought bootlegs of my songs or XTC material, and I was getting madder and madder because I'd be in a situation, or I've been in a situation until the recent past where I made no money from the sale of XTC records for the first 20 years of our career, it's pretty shocking stuff when you think about it. How many more people in the world are going to work for 20 years without getting a pay packet? The one person that could bootleg me great is me. So I thought to myself, I'm going to put out there a series of records that have got the best stuff from my personal demo archives, recordings I've made at home in the kitchen, the back bedroom, the garden shed, wherever it be. And I thought to myself, well, I'm gonna out bootleg the bootleggers. So it was really a case of getting my own back on people who would choose to steal from me. Nobody can do me better than me, I figured. So I thought, yep, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it great. I've got stuff that they'll never have got hold of. I've got the best quality, you know, not 10th generation cassette dubs down. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it great and make them eat bootleg. I'm very happy with the results. I'm very happy with the fact that people seem so delighted, fans of the band or fans of my writing in particular, absolutely delighted with the way that they've taken to them. Unfortunately, Colin Moulding, I couldn't persuade him to join me in the venture, so he's still sat on his demos and he's denying them to anyone. So he has some evil master plan, world domination, that kind of thing, GM food. For one of the Fuzzy Warbles is a tune called I Can't Tell What Truth Is Anymore, and it was written around about 1991 for inclusion on the Non-Such album. And by the time we'd started rehearsals, I thought, well, do I need to bring this up? Because we've already got a tune that's not a million miles away in feel, a kind of a rolling acoustic-powered thing called Dear Madam Barnum. And I Can't Tell What Truth Is Anymore seemed to have the same sort of rolling, shuffling kind of feel. And so I thought, no, I'll just leave that one be, and we'll work on Dear Madam Barnum. Okay, of course, when I came along to go through the archives, I say archives, it sounds really grand. It's actually a few shoeboxes with DAT tapes and stuff in and cassettes and God knows what. But when I got to stroll through my archives in the West Wing, I found this tune and I thought, wow, that's actually... maybe I had more of a downer on it than I needed to have done. Pretty good. And... the way that the demo version, the way that all the vocals and the kind of counter lines and the response lines and things weave in and out, it makes me actually think, do you know, I think we should have done this one instead of Dear Madam Barnum on Non-Such, because now I think, wow, do you know, that might be better. There's a song called End of the Pier, and I seem to be eternally fascinated with the seaside. I mean, I don't live at the seaside or anything. I'm very landlocked where I am here, completely surrounded by chalk hills. But I seem to have maybe it's because my dad was in the Navy or something, I seem to dream about the sea and being at the edge of the sea constantly. And I do like the decay and the kind of hopelessness of the British seaside. You know, it suggests smutty postcards and sticky sweet rock and amusement arcades and family arguments and splitting up and I don't know, it seems to suggest everything falling to bits in a kind of forced merriment way. And a song I was writing for Venus originally, and I got near completing it, and I thought, maybe it's too similar to another song I wrote in '84 called Seagulls Screaming, Kisser, Kisser, again with a sort of seaside theme. In that case, it was not taking opportunities and feeling like a fool, really, for not grabbing an opportunity. Just happened to be set in a seaside in winter. But with End of the Pier, it's very much a relationship decaying and falling to bits. Again, set on the seafronts of Brighton and Weymouth and places like that, to the sound of amusement arcades and carousels and stuff. And I come to putting the Fuzzy Warbles together, and again, it was a case of thinking, maybe maybe we should have recorded it properly and put it onto Apple Venus. Lyrics, although they're kind of juddery and they don't make immediate sense, I think they're some of the best impressionistic things I've ever put together, certainly with the seaside and that sense of longing and sense of sorrow and decay in them. It all seems to click. My musical input, my musical shaping, and I have this theory that everything that happens to you before about the age of 25, you then spend the rest of your life trying to work it out and gurgitated out, all the sensory input you ever had, all the books you ever read, all the pictures you ever saw, all the stuff you ever touched, all the sounds you ever heard. You then spend the rest of your life trying to pull that out from deep inside your guts. And the stuff that went in for me really big, there are several strands all meeting together. As a kid, I loved novelty songs because there was no such thing as rock and roll radio or pop radio when I was a kid. England just didn't have that. It never existed. It's a real myth. You know, it may have been the late 50s, but there wasn't any rock and roll on English radio. It may have been the early 60s, but there wasn't anything of any real worth. The only thing that had any value for me was novelty songs with sped up tape voices, too much reverb, weird sections where they'd stop and talk in the songs, or obvious comedy kind of pieces and stuff. And that was my main shaping force growing up as a kid. So you can see by the time that psychedelia came around, psychedelia was like an adult version of novelty songs. Again, there was weird tape voices, too much reverb, weird bits where people stopped and spoke. There was an obvious comedy element to a lot of it. So for me, it was an easy transition to make. And then at about the age of, oh gosh, I can't even work the maths out how old I would be. Anyway, around about 1970, I got exposed to people like Captain Beefheart's Magic Band, a lot of avant-garde jazz. A friend of mine used to get imported records from the States that were just so out there. And I hated it all to start with, but he forced me to listen to this stuff, and something clicked. And so quite suddenly I had a massive other rail to my rail track. I'd had this one rail of novelty songs and then psychedelic pop. And suddenly I had this other rail to complete the track, which was avant-garde or jazz towards the avant-garde side of things. And that I would include in that Beefheart or some of the more out there kind of bebop things even. But that seemed to set up my rail track for the future. There were the two rails heading off to the horizon. Go, boy! And that for me is the continuous dual power. I always thought when XTC started we were like a kind of a cross between the Monkees and Captain Beefheart's Magic Band, and maybe that's the upshot of that is where we are today. I'm not the sort of person who buys pop or rock records. I seem to get sent an awful lot. I mean, and running the 8 label, I get sent bags load of the stuff, you know, sign me in my group, mister. So I don't have to kind of buy any modern music. I seem to hear it all over the place, on the TV, on the radio, or it just drops through onto my mat. So I guess I go looking for music that is more obscure and pleases me for different reasons. I guess the music I get excited about now is the music that I can't do. I can do the pop stuff, I can do the rock stuff, I can do the jazz stuff. That doesn't really thrill me so much. So for me, the real exciting mystery is the kind of stuff I can't do. I've been buying albums of 20s jazz, 20s sort of syncopated kind of what a lot of people would consider funny music that goes with fast black and white films, but I think is just real vivacious and full of life. And I have to confess, most evenings I Charleston around the living room to 20s music. And I bought a 5 CD set of the music of George Formby, the majority of which seems to be from the 30s. And again, there's the English seaside connection, because most of his songs are musical equivalent of the saucy seaside postcard, or all things British seaside put into a blender and ground down and add water, the spirit of George Formby's music. So I think the only kind of pop thing I've bought in the last few months was the reissues of the Tyrannosaurus Rex albums from the 60s. My people were fair and had guy in their hair, and now they're content to wear stars on their brows, I think is the title, or some such daft connotation. Great naive music. I don't really think that Mark Bolan knew what he was doing with the guitar, but he did it with such fire that it's still stimulating to hear it now. But I tend to go for music that I can't do, music that I still don't know how they do it. That to me is the mystery.